Hello, welcome back to school. Um, we are continuing with the major key signatures on the the right side of the circle of fifths, also the sharp side. Um, we've gone through all the keys from C up to B major. And B major is when we start encountering enharmonics. But we'll talk more about the enharmonics when we talk about the other key, the other side of the circle. But for now, we are progressing on with the key of F sharp major. So as before, we are retaining all of the previous sharps that we have. And I was going to say my triple clef looks like it's wearing off. Okay, so we have F sharp that we're keeping, C sharp that we're keeping, G sharp that we're keeping, and D sharp that we are keeping. And the last one that we looked at yesterday was A sharp, or whenever you last saw the video. I don't know why I said yesterday. And then in the bass clef, we're going to retain the same pitches on the bass side. That's G, D, and A. I don't like how that's looking. Yeah, it's close enough. Okay, so now we're going to write out the key of F sharp major. I'm just going to write the sharp underneath the notes because we are at a point where it is going to be difficult to start reading these. So there's F sharp, G sharp, and A sharp, and B, and C sharp, and D sharp, and E. And then our last note is going to be F sharp. Okay. Now this is the first of very special keys I want to actually show you on the keyboard. So we're going to go over to the piano. Okay, so we are going to play the key of F major, F sharp major, and we're going to play all the notes as they are written up there on the board. So here we go, and again we're going to listen for that seventh degree. That sounds a little funky here. Now, the interesting thing is, when we move this key up a semitone, it's going to land on this note, which is correct. So if we play the scale, it sounds correct. But some of you who may know the letters of the keyboard, this is C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. That's pretty standard. Most people know that. But in here, we move this pitch E. We move it up to what may be perceived as the note F. But due to theoretical rules, this key is not F. This is now E sharp. And when we write it in music, it will be written on the staff as an E sharp. For example, it will, if I just take the chalk, so this is your E. That's an E sharp. Well, to the best of my ability. There. E sharp. So this is an E sharp. This means to play one semitone above the natural E. This is why when people say, well, why do they have weird notes like E sharp and C flat, which we'll talk about later? It's because the rule of the scale is that every pitch must be represented at least once. If we wrote this as a key, instead of writing this as an E flat, or an E sharp, and we just wrote an F here with a natural, there's no pitch E represented in the scale, but there are two Fs, which rules say that we cannot have two Fs and omit any of the other pitches in the scale. So this is why in music we have things such as an E sharp. And it is something that it's just natural. If instead of looking at the piano keyboard literally as this note is always C, instead of looking at the piano keyboard and saying this note is always C regardless of what the music looks like. This note is always F regardless of what the music looks like. This note is always E regardless of what the music looks like. This note is always B regardless of what the music looks like. That's not the proper way of looking at music symbols. What determines how music is played is not the keyboard. It's not the instrument, but it's the music. It's all these symbols right here, the black and white dots with the beams and the flags and the funny characters that look like bees and hashtags. That determines what keys you're playing on your instrument. So being able to read this is much more important than just faking it here and say, oh, I'll just say that that's a B, even though the music says it's a C flat. So it would be similar to spelling the word cat, for instance. Let's go back to grammar school and spell cat. Okay, so I've written up here the word cat. The little creature with 4 legs and a tail with whiskers coming out of its cheeks. That's a cat. But many of you will look at that and say, well, that's not spelled correctly. Cat is spelled with a C, not a K. So the correct way of spelling cat is like that. This is wrong. Let me use my red chalk. If I can find my red chalk. Okay, it's my pink chalk. So this is wrong. Why? Because it breaks the conventional spelling rules that English has for spelling. Music also has spelling rules. And one of those rules is that every pitch in the scale needs to be represented, regardless of what key you're playing on your musical instrument. So, this is kind of when we get to the these are enharmonics that we are dealing with. These are what enharmonics are. Basically, enharmonics is an English example. We have 2, 2, and 2. We have 3 ways of spelling the word two, but they all have different meanings, and the context of when they are used determines which 2 we are going to use. If we are going to write out 246 in a checkbook or, whatnot, most people don't have checkbooks, I don't know. But if we're going to write out a number 200, we need to use the correct spelling for 2. And if we don't, people are going to look at us like, you don't know how to spell 2, like the number 2. So music has the same thing. To understand that there are different spellings of the same pitch and be able to get over that hump of, well, this is just a E sharp is really an F. That's not the correct way of going about it. So, that's my wonderful rant. Okay, so back to the key. So this is kind of introduction to enharmonics. Let me set you back here and let's finish up our key signature lesson. Okay, so we have now discussed why the key of F sharp has the pitch E sharp in it. There has to be, all the notes are represented, and in addition, do you remember that pattern of tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone? That pattern needs to be retained. And if we look at the key, say, I'm just going to use this bottom part of the staff. If we have an F followed by an F sharp, this is not written as a semitone. This is rather an augmented first, which is extremely rare. That's dealing with other aspects of intervals. But, yeah. Okay, so back to the key signature. How do we write this out? We have all these flats or sharps for the key of, now we're on B, but we need to get to F sharp major. We're going to just add 1 sharp onto the E line or the E space. And that's how you write out the key of F sharp major. So again, we are venturing into the gray zone on the circle, which deals with enharmonics. So we are going to run into these things on both sides as we encompass that lower 5, 6, and 7 o'clock area on the circle. But for now, just understanding that this means to play the pitch E up a semitone, or the pitch Mi up a semitone. So there is some good news. The key of F sharp is not used a whole lot. In fact, most of these keys, F sharp and the next one we're going to cover, C sharp, they are very, very rare in the realm of music. And These are basically because a lot of composers will just use the enharmonic equivalent of the key, which in this case would be G flat major. And then the other weird one on the flat side is going to be C flat major, which, just like this one here, it's got some really funky stuff in it that a lot of people don't like, but it's part of musical convention. So when we get to the other side of the sharp, or other side of the circle, you'll see that there's that gray zone. These are just enharmonics. And this key and the next one are not used a lot. So you might, if you're writing this down, put it in your little notes. This key is not used. When we talk about F or C sharp major, indicate this key is not used a lot. And when we get to the flat side, when we get to C flat major, you could indicate this key is not used a lot because its enharmonic is B major. They sound the same, but they are spelt differently. That's what enharmonics in short are. So I hope I didn't confuse too many of you. I'm sorry if I did. Leave a question if needed. But in the time I guess you can like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget, ring the notification bell for all notifications.